Nathaniel flirted with everything under skirts until his wives shocked him by becoming lesbians. Nathaniel had always been the type to light up a room the moment he entered. From the moment he was old enough to understand the effect of a smile, he used it to his advantage. Girls, women, and even men couldn't help but be drawn to him. He wasn't arrogant, no. He had a warmth, a charisma that made you feel like the most important person in the world when he spoke to you. But as much as the people adored him, they also knew he was a flirt, a harmless flirt. They'll say always complimenting, always laughing, always touching, never too serious Nathaniel. When he met Leah, it was no different. She was beautiful, strong, and independent. The type of woman who didn't need a man to complete her. Yet, Nathaniel found himself drawn to her in a way he couldn't quite explain. Leah wasn't like the others. She was calm, grounded, and didn't fall for his charms. She didn't give him an inch, and that intrigued him more than anything. He felt challenged. He courted her for months, wooing her with his signature mix of charm and wit. But Leah wasn't easily swayed. She knew that beneath that boyish grin and those sparkling eyes, Nathaniel was a heartbreaker. A man who didn't settle, who loved the chase but feared commitment. Still, his persistence wore her down. One cold winter evening, Leah finally gave in. Nathaniel kissed her softly, promised her the world, and she believed him. It was the man she would marry. Their wedding was everything Leah had dreamt of. Nathaniel looked dashing in his suit, and Leah felt like the most beautiful woman in the world. They exchanged vows under the soft glow of fairy light, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated their union. Nathaniel promised her one thing, a promise he made with all the sincerity he could muster. I will never marry anyone but you. Nobody else, just us. Leah, you are the one I want forever. Leah smiled, her heart full of love and trust. She believed him with all of her soul. But as the months turned into years, something shifted in their relationship. Leah longed for a child. Nathaniel, ever the flirt, didn't care. He seemed to be distracted more than usual. He would spend hours at work, on business trips, or out with friends, leaving Leah to deal with the loneliness and the longing for a baby. Eventually, after many heartaches, Leah found out she was pregnant. The joy she felt was immeasurable. Nathaniel, however, seemed distant. The news should have been a moment of celebration for the couple. But Nathaniel was already thinking ahead. Parenthood, after all, meant settling down for good. And Nathaniel had never been one to settle. Nathaniel's marriage to Leah started to crack under the pressure of the pregnancy. He couldn't help himself. He had been attracted to Ava long before Leah's pregnancy. Ava was bold, fiery, and unlike any woman Nathaniel had ever met. When he met her at a work event, sparks flew. Within a month, he had married her, breaking the promise that he made to Leah. But Nathaniel didn't see it as a betrayal. He saw it as his choice to keep his life exciting. Leah was devastated, but there was nothing she could do. She couldn't control Nathaniel's actions, and so she watched him marry Ava in a grand ceremony. A woman who, like Leah, would now have to share his attention and love that she didn't even get for so long. Leah and Ava's relationship started in the most unlikely of places. Shared frustration. At first, they barely spoke. Leah avoided Ava, consumed by her own anger and hurt. But as the weeks passed, they found themselves talking, sometimes arguing, but more often than not, bonding. Both women were now married to Nathaniel, both frustrated by his lack of commitment, and both began to see the other in a new light. It wasn't long before their bond deepened. Leah found herself drawn to Ava in ways she hadn't anticipated. It started with stolen glances, then with lingering touches. Soon, the connection they shared was undeniable. It wasn't just a shared hatred of Nathaniel's behavior. It was something more. They felt the need to comfort each other. They were so hurt by how Nathaniel was embarrassing them going round the estate, going around with girls. Leah and Ava's secret love affair became the ultimate escape. They would meet when Nathaniel was away, hidden in the quiet corners of the house, sharing moments of intimacy that neither of them expected can ever happen between them. The passion was unexpected, raw and real. Nathaniel never suspected a thing. He was too caught up in his own drama, in his own flirts, the flirtations with other women, his inability to settle down. He was too caught up in all of that. But everything changed when Nathaniel began to experience pain in his lower back. What he thought was a minor problem soon turned into something very big, something more serious. The doctor's words were simple. Nathaniel had prostate issues. Nathaniel was shocked. His world was beginning to unravel. The pain he had been feeling, which he had brushed off as simple fatigue or stress from work, suddenly became unbearable. One evening, as he sat at his desk flipping through a stack of paperwork, a sharp pain shot through his lower back, causing him to gasp. He leaned forward, pressing a hand to his back, trying to alleviate the pressure, but it did nothing to ease the discomfort. He ignored it at first. After all, a man like Nathaniel wasn't accustomed to thinking about his health. He was a man of action, of charm, of presence. He was never the type to stop and take things seriously. But when the pain intensified and radiated into his pelvis, Nathaniel knew something wasn't right and he needed to act fast. The feeling of helplessness gnawed at him, a sensation he'd never experienced before. His pride kept him from seeking immediate help. But after a week of sleepless nights and worsening symptoms, he finally called his doctor. The diagnosis came quickly. Prostate issues, they said. The doctor was blunt, explaining that it could lead to more serious complications if he doesn't act fast, potentially affecting Nathaniel's ability to father children or even his quality of life. The reality of his own vulnerability hit him like a ton of bricks. It wasn't invincible, after all. Nathaniel struggled with the weight of his diagnosis. He never expected it at all, and his ego was bruised. As a man who had prided himself on his charm and virility, he now faced a condition that threatened both. In his mind, it wasn't just his body that had betrayed him. It was a sense of masculinity, the very thing he had always leaned on. Leah and Ava, for all their growing affection for each other, had not expected their relationship with Nathaniel to take such a drastic turn. While they had shared their own secrets and formed an emotional bond, the revelation of Nathaniel's prostate issue gave them a unique form of leverage. While their love affair was going on, they made sure to take care of Leah's little baby, Joanne, who had two mothers luckily. The two women had never openly discussed their power over Nathaniel. They had shared the frustration of being married to the same man, but their secret relationship had always been about them, about finding solace in each other. Yet, the moment Nathaniel's health became public knowledge, everything changed. They had a choice to make. Their love for one another had already forced them to live in secrecy. But now the stakes were higher, with the secret of Nathaniel's health in their hands. And they know that for sure he won't want it to get out to the public. He would be so embarrassed. They were no longer the passive victims of his flirtations and promises. They had a weapon, one they could use to control him. One evening, after Nathaniel had come home from the doctor's office, the women were sitting together in the living room, sharing a quiet conversation. Nathaniel didn't even notice that they don't miss him anymore. He didn't even notice that they don't argue or fight anymore. They become so close, he didn't even notice. Nathaniel had just returned from a visit to a specialist and had not mentioned the latest developments yet. He seemed distant, his usual charm replaced with a quiet, contemplative air. "Leah, Ava, I need to talk to you," Nathaniel said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. He sat down on the couch, his eyes darting between the two women, and for the first time in years, he looked vulnerable and sad. I have something to confess," he stammered. "It's about my health." Leah and Ava exchanged a glance, both of them already knowing where this conversation was headed. They had been anticipating this moment, though they had not quite prepared themselves for how it would feel. "I know," Leah said softly, her tone calm but firm. Ava nodded in agreement, the weight of the moment settling over them. Nathaniel's eyes widened in confusion. "What do you mean you know?" "You're prostrate," Ava replied. "We figured it out. You didn't need to tell us." Nathaniel's face turned pale, and for a moment, it seemed like all the air in the room had been sucked out. How do you know?" he asked. "We know, Nathaniel," Leah said, "and we need to talk about what comes next." There was a long distance before Nathaniel finally spoke, his voice tight. "I didn't want to worry either of you. I didn't think it was something I needed to discuss." Ava's voice was low but confident. "Well, you're wrong. You've made your choice. And, well, we found out ourselves. Nathaniel, you've made a lot of decisions for all of us. And now, it is time for us to make a few of our own." Nathaniel looked between the two women, suddenly aware that he no longer has control over them. Nathaniel looked between the two women, suddenly aware that he was no longer in control. He had always been the one pulling the strings, charming his way through them. But now, Leah and Ava had the upper hand. They now know his secrets, and he won't want that to get exposed. Leah leaned forward. "Here's the deal, Nathaniel. You've kept secrets from us for too long, but now we are the ones holding the power. If you want to keep your health issue a secret, you have to keep ours too." Nathaniel blinked, confusion mixing with fear. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Ava reached out and took Leah's hand, intertwining it. "We've been living in the shadows of your promises, your flirtations, your lies, your betrayal. But now, we found a new way of living. Together, as we are, we won't let you expose us, Nathaniel. If you do well, we'll make sure the world knows nothing about your health condition. But if you expose us, we are going to expose everything about your health condition. And you know what that means. And we'll let everyone know exactly how you betrayed us both." The tension in the room was palpable. Nathaniel's heart raced, his mind reeling. He had never felt so powerless, so vulnerable. His health was a ticking time bomb, and his wives had all the ammunition they needed to ruin him. The days following their confrontation were tensed. Nathaniel withdrew into himself, no longer the confident, flirtatious man he had once been. He was so lost. He couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that his wives shown. How had his wives, the woman he loved, turned the tables on him so completely? Leah and Ava, on the other hand, found themselves at a crossroads. Their love for each other had grown deeper than they had ever expected it to grow. They had built a bond based on mutual pain and understanding, and now that bond was stronger than ever. But as they enjoyed their secret connection, they both wondered what it would mean for them in the long run. The power dynamics had shifted, but the emotional turmoil was only beginning. Leah and Ava had control, but neither was sure how far they were willing to go with it. Nathaniel, feeling the state of his own vulnerability, began to question everything. Was this the life he wanted? Was his flirtatious nature, his pride, his worth, the entire emotional cost? Could he ever regain control over his own life and his wife's? Nathaniel became a shadow of himself. He couldn't believe what his life had turned to. He couldn't flirt anymore. He didn't even have what most ladies wanted from him anymore. And his wives, they were in their own world. He was alone. Depression almost set in until his wives saw how remorseful he was. Nathaniel became a very changed person. He didn't do what he used to do before. One day, he decided it was time to reconcile with his wives. He went to them and he asked for forgiveness. His wives forgave him after making sure that he won't go back to his wayward behavior. However, they gave him a condition that they won't stop their relationship. He was fine with it, and then they lived like that as a happy family ever after. The end. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please do not forget to like this video. Tell me what you feel about the story in the comment section. I'll make sure to reply everyone. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel and tap on the notification bell so every time a story is posted, you know and you will come watch. Thank you so much, everyone.